Hello everyone, in this second video I'm going to show you the remote debugging of the static web server. In this case I'm going to focus on the console and also on the watch feature of the debugger that allows you to inspect the value of a variable at running time. Just to remind you the different pieces of software in this architecture, I'm going to use a development host at left and the deployment host at right. The development host is a Windows 10 with Lazarus and Free Pascal. The deployment host is a Debian 10 with KVM-QEMU. In the development host, the application is compiled and then it is deployed in the Debian host as a Toro guest by using KVM microvm machine. In addition, I use CF cluster to store the binaries and files for the guest. When the appliance is launched, it waits for the GDB client and then it continues the execution. The GDB staff uses a virtual console where the Toro console uses the legacy serial port. This is an engagement compared with the previous demo in which the legacy serial port is used for GDB staff. The use of virtual console speeds up the communication to the GDB client. Let's see how all these work together. At left, I have the StaticWebServer project. The first step I'm going to do is to compile it. So I'll go to run and then compile. The second step is to transfer the binary to the remote host. Now what I'm going to do is going to launch the appliance by using Clouded. We can see here that QEMU is waiting for the GDB client to connect to. In this case, I set up a breakpoint during the initialization of the microservice. So let's just run it. You can see here that the microservice starts to execute. This is part of the initialization of the kernel. And then the breakpoint has been reached in line 259. Let's just click on run to see if it prints something on the console. So the second breakpoint has been reached and effectively the output is in the console. Let's click run again. The third breakpoint I set up, it is when a new request arrives. So let's just request a web page. In this case, I'm going to use wget. We can see here that the breakpoint has been reached. What I'm going to do now is to inspect the values and the fields of the socket variable, which is a p socket. To do this, first I'm going to do Ctrl F7. So I get this window. The next thing I'm going to do is to inspect. And we get this window, which is the value of the pointer. If you double click on this, you can see all the values of the variable with different fields. So for example, buffer contain the buffer that just arrived, which is the HTTP header. It corresponds with the get index and which is right. Buffer reader contains the whole packet, so it contains also the header. By using this feature, we can inspect all the fields of the socket structure. If now we click on run, you can see that the request has been successfully answered. Let's try again, but with a file that has a wrong name. We see again that the breakpoint has been reached. Let's do that again. We first do Ctrl F7, inspect, and then double click. You can see effectively that contains the new file name, which is run. If we click run again, we get effectively error 404. Thanks for watching and stay tuned for new features of Toro. Thank you.